Hey, it's Camo with the Nashville Access Show presented by Solis North Gulch Apartments. As you know by watching the show, I love to hold up stuff because I'm just that immature. So I get to hold up an album today. It is called Good Old-Fashioned Pain, and the artist who is on the CD just happens to be here because I'm just not holding up random CDs. Ladies and gentlemen, Taylor Alexander. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on the show today. Good to see you. We were just talking about this, Good Old-Fashioned Pain. If that doesn't sound like the title of a country album, or what used to be country, then I don't know what was. Tell us about the album.
Well, I started writing the songs about when I moved to Nashville, which is about 5 years ago. All except for one. The title track I actually wrote years and years ago when I still lived in Georgia. And I was working on a construction crew, and I kind of had the idea for the title right then. And then when I got home, I sat down, started strumming my guitar, came up with that little opening riff, and wrote the rest of the song. And I think the record is kind of just about, it's not about like this unique sort of tragic pain or anything like that. It's just that kind of baseline background noise.
Everybody
has
yeah.
that everyone can relate to sort of stuff. And so that was really, the last 5 years or so of my life, kind of trying to grow up and learn new things and live in a new city.
The whole growing up thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still not any closer to that, I don't think.
Well, maybe a little bit after, I think maybe I got a little bit closer after having finished the record.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, no, that's a different thing. That's aging.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you're originally from Georgia. Where in Georgia?
Kind of northeast of Atlanta, about 45 minutes. I lived, right before I moved here, I lived in Flowery Branch, which is in Hall County, which is kind of north of Gwinnett County, north of Buford kind of area. Yeah.
Cool.
Bunch of places most people have ever heard of.
Yeah, I've never heard of them, so I'll just skip along.
Yeah.
So you moved to Nashville 5 years ago, so you've got like 10, and another 5 years before you.
Yeah, well, I think by the time I get to 10, then it'll be a 15-year town.
Yeah, keep dangling the carrot. And it's not really a country album, it's more of an Americana album.
Yeah, I
you
think.
kind of see yourself as an Americana artist?
I guess to an extent, that Americana term is always so fluctuating.
It's a very broad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when I was playing this kind of music back home, people were calling it alternative country, and now it's Americana, and sometimes it's just country, traditional, so.
And when it's done on
I'm
an
comfortable
acoustic
with
guitar,
whatever.
it's always just country anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what genre it is. Do it on an acoustic. It could be Megadeth. You do it on an acoustic, and it still sounds country.
Give it a little bit of twang in this country.
That's right. Cool. So, what led to the production of this? I mean, because you talk about this kind of good old-fashioned pain, and it's always that kind of underlying pain. What kind of drove that for you?
I guess that it was moving here really, because I abruptly moved up here. I think I kind of decided in October and moved in January kind of a thing, and it was kind of abrupt, and I kind of felt like it was like almost like an all or nothing sort of a thing. So got up here and didn't know very many people. I had a couple of friends, but I kind of felt pretty isolated because I had really only lived, back in Georgia pretty much for the last, it had been, I guess, 12 or so years at that point. Because before that I lived in Florida for a little bit when I was a kid, and so I was kind of like isolated. It was kind of all new because I didn't have like a college experience either, so I didn't like go away to college or something and have that kind of 4 years of kind of living on your own sort of thing first. Like I lived on my own back home, but like this felt like kind of an uprooting, and I think that was kind of the impetus of everything was kind of that feeling of isolation and like, oh, what do I do now? Like I kind of like I'm far enough away from my family where like if I get in trouble, it's like I'm gonna have to call somebody else,
Yeah.
So I think that definitely kind of inspired a lot of it. A couple of like song "Real Good at Saying Goodbye" on there was kind of a sarcastic, introspective song about how I just kind of abruptly left Georgia without telling a lot of people, and there's kind of that sort of thing, but. I think generally just kind of that introspective, like, what why do I feel this way? Why do I feel isolated? This sort of thing. So
Why did you leave so quickly? Bill collectors?
Yeah, I had to just ditch. I had to get out. You know, I think that I was a bit more. I don't know. It was probably an immaturity thing to a certain extent, where I would just kind of like get an idea and just like go for it, like hard, you know, like, without really. And it's not that I didn't think it through or whatever. Like I had an apartment lined up and stuff like that, and I was only just turned 22, so like. I was like young enough to where like I didn't have like the sorts of responsibilities that would necessarily that I was like just like doing away with or whatever. But I just kind of someone, you know, I was actually kind of remember what happened was I was sitting at lunch with a friend of mine and her parents, because her dad was kind of a mentor of mine, a songwriter too back home, and I remember during lunch, he just kind of said, "How come you haven't like tried Nashville out?" And I was like, "Well, I just kind of feel like, you know, with the kind of music that I do, and I kind of realized that I was just kind of afraid to be under that kind of scrutiny. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it, and just did it. You know, I remember I texted a friend and I was like, I need to find an apartment, and he was like, hey, lucky for you, I'm moving out of mine because I'm getting married, so you can have my room, and that is actually the place from the song "Hole in the Wall" that I ended up living in until I got married. So yeah.
Yeah, I asked that because I've done it a few times.
Yeah.
But mine have been across the ocean twice. So
yeah, well that's good.
That's like I can't put everything back in the car and drive home.
Yeah, and that's kind of, you know, I think part of the Nashville thing for me too was like, well, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I have to drive, you know, 4 hours back home, you know?
Yeah, we always talk about that with the artists from other countries that move here, because it's that kind of thing. You know, if you move to Nashville to do music and it doesn't work out, well, you just pack up your car and drive back to Oregon or Arkansas or wherever you're from. When you come here from England or Australia or Canada, well, Canada you can still pack everything in the car, but from other countries like that, it's like you can't just throw everything in the car and drive home. They don't have ferries.
Yeah, no.
No ferries
it's
from here to
commitment.
Australia. Yeah. So it's really, that is really making that commitment to, okay, I have no plan B. And
I think I did kind of feel like that because, like I said earlier, like I didn't go to college or whatever, so I really don't have a plan B.
Yeah.
You know, and the same mentor that I was talking about that kind of encouraged me to move here, one time he told me, he was like, the more time you spend working on your plan B, the more likely you are to use it. Yeah. You know, so he was like, just go do it, you know. And so I think that was kind of part of the, like, almost like that kind of anxious drive to get there and try, because it was like, well, I don't have anything else that I can do right now. You know, it's either this or construction or, you know.
I've always been the same way. It's, you have plan A and you sink everything into that.
Yeah.
And then if that's not working, then you try and figure something else out. But to me, to have it's like you said, if you have that plan B, then you're working on that just as much or more than plan A, and then it switches.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, it will. The thing that gives you the most security will take precedence at some point over the dream, you know, because the dream gets really, really difficult and doesn't pay the bills generally for a while, and like it's hard to be uncomfortable for a long time, you know.
And great writing can come from that.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully,
great. That's always the thing that people wonder is, do you need to have that suffering and discomfort and awkwardness?
Yeah. It's like maybe not, but it helps. It doesn't hurt.
So are you making a living now making music?
Not 100%. I still work odd jobs. While I was making this record, I worked at this warehouse. I was mostly loading trucks for event rental stuff. So kind of whatever I can find to do, I'm doing. Gigging when I have time, you know. So yeah, it's still very much little side jobs and the same as it's been for a long time, you know.
When you're gigging, are you getting out of town and because it's infamously difficult to make money gigging in Nashville?
Yeah, it is for sure. That's my focus is mostly trying to get out of town. But you know, it's not as easy as it once was to book shows on your own. That's one thing that I realized too within the last couple of years is like now there's a lot more infrastructure, which is probably good, but there's a lot more booking agents and guys that have these relationships built, so it's a lot harder just to make the phone call and get the gig.
Yeah.
But there's still plenty of places to go play. So
yeah, it's a similar situation to the CMA with their stages during CMA Fest. People will start up these little independent stages that do really well, and then the CMA kind of takes them over, and it's like, so now I have to go through this infrastructure to try and get a stage where it could have been I made a phone call to a guy and I got on the stage.
That's a real thing for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
You want to do a song and then we'll talk some more.
Let's do one.
We just happen to have a guitar here with a hole in it. Sorry.
Yeah. Well.
2 holes in it. That's almost Willie's trigger.
Yeah, it's getting to be that.
Oh, that's a beautiful sound. Martin, that's why.
Yeah, I've been playing this guitar for about 10 years. I bought it right after I got out of high school. I had a job that paid $100 a week, and I saved up for this isn't a very expensive guitar, so I saved up for like a month, because I still live with my parents because I had just gotten out of high school, so I bought this guitar, and I've been playing it ever since, you can tell. So I guess the first one I'm going to do is a tune called I Never Asked for Nothing. It's on the record.
That's this record.
Yeah. It's the 3rd track, and I wrote this song after kind of thinking about that you really do have to learn at a certain point in your life to ask for things when you need them, or else you likely won't get them. So that was where this song came from.
Taylor Alexander.
I never asked for nothing, never would speak up. Didn't want the trouble, didn't want to make a fuss. There's just 2 kinds of people, the haves and the have-nots. I never asked for nothing, so nothing's what I got. Now she was all I'd ever wanted, I was a setting sun, hell-bent on burning out, for she had the chance to run. I guess I could have asked her, it was probably worth a shot. I never asked for nothing, so nothing's what I got. It's gonna take a little water for a seed to grow, and there ain't a door I ever heard of that opened on its own. So asking you just might receive more oftentimes than not. I never asked for nothing, so nothing's what I got. Have this dream where I'm invited to the house of God, with the porch light shining, but the front door is locked. And I just stand there wondering if I should ring the bell or not. I never asked for nothing, so nothing's what I got. Well, it's gonna take a little water for a seed to grow, and there ain't a door I ever heard of that opened on its own. So asking you just might receive more oftentimes than not. I never asked for nothing, so nothing's what I got. Asking you just might receive more oftentimes than not. I never asked for nothing, so nothing's what I got.
Cool song.
All right, thank you.
You're watching the Nashville Access Show with Camo. My special guest today, Taylor Alexander, and I like the Roman numerals on the back.
Oh, thanks.
I'm just wondering today how many people go, oh, track VIR.
Yeah, right.
The album is called Good Old Fashioned Pain, and it's available now, isn't
It is, yes.
They can get it from your website.
Yeah, if you'd like physical copies,
Yeah.
my website's iamtayloralexander.com, and you can order one, yeah.
Cool. And that way he gets to keep all the money.
Sure.
Instead of you streaming it 2 million times to make up for playing one song.
Exactly.
Where do your experiences come from? I mean, these are. I hate to. Don't take this the wrong way, but
Sure.
they're very grown-up songs.
Uh-huh.
And when you're as young as you are, it's like, well, where is that coming from?
That's a good question. I think I honestly think that I spent so much time being, like I was saying, like feeling isolated and being isolated in a lot of ways when I first moved up here, that I just had more time to think than I really needed, you know, and maybe more so than is good for it. And it was
a
just
fine line after that is
Yeah.
medication.
yeah, well, and so I really just kind of got real insular and started thinking about things really hard, like trying to figure out really why I was feeling the way that I was feeling, and just really trying to think hard about it. And you know, obviously, like, you know, I was reading, you know, a lot of things, and you know, just trying to learn more about myself and stuff like that. And so it kind of, that's where all of it came from.
Just an advice when you're feeling like that, don't ever go on WebMD.
No, and I'll tell you, there was a lot of that going on, and like that, I think that was one that turned out to be extremely negative.
Yeah, I'm dying.
I had lots of diseases. I'll tell you that didn't exist.
WebMD is not a place for the lonely and insecure to go and hang out.
Especially not the anxious.
So what's your life like now? Have you come out of that insular kind of place and actually, you know, making friends and connecting people? And if you are, give me people.
Yeah. To an extent, I'm married. You know, we live up in Old Hickory Village now. So I feel a lot less isolated in that sense, but yeah, I mean, I have a lot more friends. I've made a lot more friends in town, and I get out a lot more. I work out more, which is good. That probably helps a lot. But you know, it's meant that I've had to kind of re-examine writing to a certain extent. I have to find new time, you know, find new ways to find things to write about. You know?
Yeah, well, when you write from a place where it's kind of isolation and questioning everything about your existence and where you are, all of a sudden you're married and you're happy, and it's like, okay, what do I write about now?
Yeah, and that's a real thing that I'm contending with now, is trying to figure out, like, well, what do I want to write about, you know? I'm sure that there will be plenty, you know. I think I finally I'm starting, like, I haven't quite got this album out of my system yet, like out of my backlog, so maybe, you know, I'll get these songs out in the world more before I worry too much about the next record. But that's just kind of how I am, is I'm always trying to be, you know, an album ahead of, you know. But so I'm just gonna kind of not worry too much about it right now. But
did you finance this yourself, or was this through a crowdfunding?
No, this was 100% me and my wife. Wow. We made it on a shoestring budget, really. It was produced by a good friend of mine, who I've actually known since I was probably 10. Yeah. And he's actually the guy that I ended up taking his room when he got married and moved up here, full circle. But he produced it, and he did it for a lot lower than his rate should be. Yeah. And all the musicians on there are friends of mine that agreed to play for lower than they're worth too, you know, because they just were happy to help and play.
And it comes around because somebody will ask you to do the same thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Of course, yeah.
And it really, I mean, we're real proud to say that we financed it 100% on our own. And I mean, we were both working, you know, a couple jobs, you know, I was working like pretty much full time at that warehouse and then doing other stuff, playing gigs. Like, she was working her butt off, and I'm not quite sure how we managed to come up with the money, but it was, you know, it was kind of piecemeal is how we did it.
But even when you're producing an album on a shoestring budget, you still have to be aware of all the things that it needs to have to be a great album, and that you can't scrimp on.
No.
And it's, even if you do it cheap, it's still an expensive process to do.
Yeah, and there's all this kind of there's all this post-credit stuff that you never think about, like, oh, well, Now, if you want to be playing in the same league as everybody else, you need to hire a publicist, and that costs as much as the record costs to make. So.
But at least you haven't come to town like a lot of artists do, where the first thing is, okay, I need a manager.
Yeah.
Sweetheart, you got nothing to manage.
No. Yeah.
You know,
it's 100%. Yeah.
Get bookings, get your social media, get your own publicity generated, and then start getting the pieces, and then you've got something to manage.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I didn't do. Thankfully, was I think that because I had been in bands and stuff back home, that I'd been back and forth to Nashville a few times, so I kind of had an idea of like, at least I think I had less naivety than I would have if I would have come here when I was 18. Which I think kind of helped, was that I wasn't spending a lot of time doing things that wouldn't end up working out, like that, But yeah, I mean, it really was a labor of love, and it took us, from the time that we started recording it took us almost 2 years to get it out.
Wow.
Yeah, it took a really long time because, we'd come up with a little bit of money, another session, another vocal session, mixing the song, and now we got to master it,
And that's another thing that so many artists, they always cut corners on, and this is something I'm always saying to people is, mix it and master it, because some people put it out there and it's not done, and it's crap without it. And that's something you just can't cut the corners on, is the mixing and mastering.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think we actually spent more money on the mixing and mastering than the tracking.
Yeah.
Because I really thought that's where we need to spend the money, is on the mix and master for sure. It just it makes something. It takes something to the next level. At least it puts it on the level that it needs to be at to even be considered for anything, right?
It seems like you're doing all the right things, and that will pay off.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
What's been the hardest lesson for you trying to make it in the music business here?
There's been a few. I think lately it's been trying to cut through the noise. Like there's a lot going on in music. There's a lot of access to music, which I think it definitely cuts both ways. It's a good thing and a bad thing, to an extent, right? I mean, you've got so much access to stuff all the time. It makes the ease of entry into the music business, if you want to call it, a lot easier. So you have a lot more albums out. You have a lot more press cycles out, because like I was saying about that infrastructure, is now we've got people that normal people like me can afford to hire, like a publicist. So now everyone's got one. So it's like, it's really like a lot of noise. So it's been honestly at times really frustrating. Like, how come I can't, get the record out to this many people? I wish I had this many streams, or could get on this, whatever, right?
Yeah, getting on the playlist.
It's just, you just have to, it's just, I think I thought maybe that if you spent all the money up front on the record and you did it right, then like it would be smoother on the other side. But it's really like, that's when the real work started, which I'm glad to have found out now, and not 10 years from now, like after my 10th record or something.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, wait a second. I've been doing everything backwards.
Backwards the entire time. Yeah. So I think that really has been, and just kind of learning who you are and not who you are trying to be, I think is that was difficult, and that I think that was part of why the record took a long time to come out too, was because I was, I got to Nashville, saw all these different songwriters, all the kind of what was going on, and like, oh, maybe I should try to do more of that.
Maybe it should be more pop. Maybe I should have a drum loop.
Maybe or maybe I should lean really hard into the traditional sound. Like there's like, I think you have to, like for myself, I had to just kind of sit back and be like, man, like what happens when you sit down to write? Like that's what you should put out, because nobody else will do that. That's what you do, right? So that was a tough lesson to learn, and I think I don't know if I wasted time, but I would say that I probably misused some time trying to be other people for a little while.
You have to go through that process, I think.
For sure.
It's a necessary process for somebody coming into a town that there's just music everywhere.
Yeah.
Where do I fit in? How do I stand out? It's got to be part of the process.
Yeah, for sure.
We had Allie Colleen in here recently, and she said with her EP, they've decided to do it so it's like a playlist, and let the song dictate the production rather than saying, okay, here's an Americana EP, here's a country thing. It's write the song and let the song determine.
Yeah.
So it almost plays like a playlist rather than an album.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that's a really good approach, I think, for a lot of artists, is just let the song dictate.
Yeah, no, that was kind of a mantra when we were making the record, was because I think me and Brendan, the producer, I think we felt a little bit of pressure to like try to make certain songs sound like other artists or whatever, like, oh, then it'll be more, you know, applicable to what's going on. But we kind of just had to hold back a little bit and be like, what does the song actually need on it? What does it sound like? Should the last song be a piano ballad? It's like, sounds like one to me. Let's do it. You know, that, you know, you just have to be true to the song. You know, for sure.
Is that where it all begins for you? Is the song itself?
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of that's always been more of my focus generally when because I started writing songs playing in bands like when I was, you know, real young, like, you know, 13 and 12, you know.
You took the Dave Grohl idea of get a guitar, get in a band, and suck.
Yeah, and sucked for a really long time. Yeah, a really long time. So, and wrote a lot of really sucky songs.
Music is made. It's not going on a TV show and waiting for them to make you a star. It's like buy a guitar, suck. Get together with a bunch of friends that have different instruments and suck all together.
And
something great will grow out of that.
Well, I mean, I think it's just like anything else. You don't jump. I'm trying to think of something that takes a lot of time. Like, you don't jump on a skateboard for the first time and kickflip. You know, you have to fall a whole bunch of times.
Which I discovered is. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I don't know why people think it's like any, you know, it's like this kind of special ethereal thing where if you're Bob Dylan, you just woke up one day and you were Bob Dylan. It's like, no, you write a lot of really bad songs first, and then you get good.
Zimmerman for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Bob Dylan. Yeah.
You work really, really hard for a long time and hope that you get, you know, like one out of every 25 songs is decent, right? So.
You want to do another song?
Sure, absolutely.
Cool. You're watching the Nashville Access Show with Camo. My guest is Taylor Alexander. His album is called Good Old Fashioned Pain. He's going to do another song for us after he gets his cape on.
Yeah, I thought I'd do a little up-tempo one here.
Sweet.
This kind of goes back to what when you mentioned like trying to find things to write songs about when you're feeling a little bit better, and that's kind of where this song came from. I was sitting at a bar. And I think I had my notepad or something, and I was like kind of frustrated because I didn't have anything to write about. And I was like, maybe I should write about not having anything to write about. And then I kind of joked to myself that it would, you know, what I really need is like, this is before I was married and everything, I really need a girl to like, just like smash my heart into pieces. Then I could write a song. And so that's what I wrote this song about. It's called Break My Heart Tonight. Lately my heart ain't aching like it used to do. Ever since I have gotten over losing you. The trouble is I don't feel anything at all. I've heard every song on the jukebox and the bartender's cut me off. So hurry, somebody, break my heart tonight. I need something to remind me that I'm really still alive. Could you please help this poor man that don't know how to cry? Hurry, somebody, break my heart tonight. I've tried most every combination that I could find. Half alcohol, half I'm so lonesome I could cry. But now I think I found a brand new recipe. Hey, good looking, do you think you could make a fool of me?
Okay, so the time has come that it's Taylor Alexander headlining his first stadium tour, national stadium tour. Who opens for you?
Ooh, that's a good question.
They all say that.
Yeah.
Trying to buy time.
Well, honest to God, I think that I would pick some of my friends that helped me on my record. I have kind of built a cool community in town with some writers that I really respect as friends and as writers, and I'd like to give them a platform if I was in that position. So, number one, my wife is a great songwriter, Lindsay Ellen. She's going to be working on a record with Brendan this year too. And then my friend Kylie Connell just put out a new record. She sang backup with me on Real Good at Saying Goodbye and Good Old Fashioned Pain, the songs, and I think her record is fantastic. It's so unique. You just have to hear it. She's got one of those voices that just kind of like stops people, and I think I'd want to give a platform to people like that if I was that fortunate.
That's great. I mean, that's kind of the way, you help the people that have been helping you.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me. My pleasure.
It's great having you here. Can't wait to get home and listen to this.
Oh man, I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Taylor Alexander, Good Old Fashioned Pain. Go get it. Buy it on his website, imtayloralexander.com.
Yeah.
There's not even a www in front of it, so you save time.
Yeah. It's less to remember.
Yeah, less to remember. And go get that, or go and stream it like 2 million times.
That would be great too.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
You have to come back again soon.
Yeah,
when
let's
you've
do
got something new to write about.
I'll let you know. Maybe it'll be more positive.
Thanks for watching the Nashville Access Show with Camo. Make sure you catch me every Sunday on Chris Country all across the UK, following the Bobby Bones Show at midday, and Tamworth 88.9 FM in Tamworth, Australia, 9:30 Thursday mornings with Jody Crosby and John Wolfe. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.